Hello, Journey friends, and welcome back to this week's Along the Journey. Today I am alongside a season's worth of front yard leaf collection. That's right, every year the same thing, right? About September they start to fall. You try to mulch them as you can, and then by November, December, you're spending about 2 hours every other day just blowing them, raking them, getting them to the curb, and the city will be by here shortly to take them away. But you know, it's just like clockwork. The expectation is that by next September, the same thing is going to happen again, and that's okay. I mean, I love the trees that are filled with leaves, and I love when the leaves fall and we get a little more light through here. And really, there's a little bit of comfort in the way that creation cycles, and there's a little bit of comfort in knowing that this is going to happen again next year. You get a lot of good sermon and journey thoughts when you're out here working with leaves. But you know, this week it's that sort of expectation, that comfort that comes from knowing that God is unchanging, that just like clockwork, He is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And in this third and final week of knowing God, who and what God is, the theological attributes and understandings of His character, we're going to be looking at that essence of His character, His immutability. Again, new word, good word, but in short, God does not change in His character, His purpose, or His promises. So this week we're in the Blue Year, Section 3, Unit 3, the final unit in this Knowing God section, theology section of who and what God is. And you know, we looked at the first week, we looked at God's sovereign nature, that He's all-powerful, omnipotent over all things. Week 2, we looked at the fact that He is spiritual, that He is transcendent, He is immanent, that He is omnipresent. And so this week we're looking at this nature of His, this essence of His that is unchangeable. And I really like how the Westminster Shorter Catechism, question number 4, really kind of wraps up a lot of this. The question is, what is God? And the answer to that question is that God is a spirit whose being, His wisdom, His justice, His holiness, His power, His goodness, His truth is infinite, eternal, and unchangeable. That is what God is. And what a great answer. Take a look at that. Westminster Catechism, Shorter Catechism number 4, the question and answer. And so this week, 3 key items to take a look at for yourself and with your group. The first is just get an overview of what it really means that God is immutable, His immutability. What does it mean that He's not changing? What does it mean about His person, His promises, and His purposes being unchangeable? What are some of the scripture and passages around that? The Psalm 102, you are the same and your years have no end. Malachi 3:6 says, for I, the Lord, do not change. So take a look at that, get your bearings, so to speak. And then the second element this week that I'd encourage you to think about, reflect on, and discuss is really sort of drill down on the idea that God's purposes never change. What does that mean for you and me? The fact that His purposes from the beginning are His purposes until there's the culmination of our presence with Him eternally. These purposes do not contradict themselves. What are some of the possible contradictory thoughts that we have about His purposes? So that's going to be some really good information in there about that. And then the third key element this week is in the accountability section. We haven't looked in that section in a while, even though I'm hopeful that you look at these weekly. But as a point of emphasis, how should our life reflect the immutability of God? You know, there's something about growing in our Christ-like maturity that exhibits itself in consistency. And so I think there's an idea that while we are far from perfect, we are changeable. You know, and even this example of the leaves and the seasons, things can happen. We could chop down that tree and those leaves will be no more. And so those are just, you know, as close to an example that we as changeable beings can have conceptually of an unchangeable God. But what does it mean for our lives to reflect the immutability of God? Great question. I hope you spend some time on it this week. I hope that this has been a very edifying section within our Journey curriculum. We're halfway through the sections. We've gone through 3 and we'll have 3 more to go. And so this week, may this all come together for you. May there just be this great richness and intimacy in knowing God even better and loving Him more because of it. And may we see you along the journey where the leaves in the trees or the leaves on the ground remind you of the unchangeable nature of God. Blessings, friends.